Okay, it's 7:01. Let's call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Urbana Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. It's Tuesday, April 19th at 7:01. Could we have a roll call, John?
Yes, Bill Brown,
Here.
Annie Adams,
Here.
Kara Dudek,
Here.
Cynthia Hoyle, Audrey Ishii, Susan Jones, Jeff Marino,
Here.
Bruce Michelson, Sartek Prasad, Nancy Westcott, and John Zeman here. We have a quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you. Are there any additions to the agenda? Audrey, I think Audrey had one.
We received an opportunity to comment on an upcoming IDOT project on East University Avenue in January, and we did not have the opportunity to get this on the agenda and therefore to discuss it among ourselves, and there was very little response to that request for input. So I have about 8 slides to just describe what that project is with respect to IDOT requirements, and especially the bicycle travel assessment that they are really seeking input on, and all the people here probably have things to add to that.
Okay, I think John's going to do a little short update on that, but we could put that after that under new business number B, if that's okay.
Okay, shall I make a motion?
Yeah, we can do voice votes now that we're in person, so yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to move that we have a short discussion on East University Avenue in this meeting. I'll second that motion.
Moved by Audrey, seconded by Sue. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. So that'll be number B under new business. Any other additions to the agenda? Okay, thanks. Approval of minutes from March. Did everybody get a chance to read through those? Are there any corrections? Sorry, I didn't have my mic on. So we're now up to approval of the minutes, and there are some corrections from Cynthia.
We're out of practice.
Yeah.
Turning our microphones on. Under the first bullet, item 5A, which was about our goals, I would change it to Cynthia Hoyle discussed funding needed for expanding and accomplishing the goals. And I will pass this down to you, John, so it's easier. And then on the first bullet on the second page, page 2, we should capitalize bicycle friendly and add the word business. That is a designation through the League of American Bicyclists. And then the item below that says Jeff Marino will assist interns in reviews of, it was the pedestrian master plan. I think we should specify that that was the one you volunteered to help with. Isn't that true?
I think it was all of the plans. So bicycle, pedestrian, and if there was any other.
Oh, okay. All right, then I'm wrong. So it was bicycle, pedestrian, and wayfinding. Those are the only ones we have.
Yes.
Okay. I think it would be helpful to specify, if that's okay, for clarification of the minutes. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes as suggested?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. I think Bruce might have beat you to that, so I'll take the motion by Bruce and second by Sue. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Public input. Is there any? There is some public input tonight.
Okay, I see it changed a little bit here. Actually, Jeff Yackey's on his way, should be walking in the door any moment. He has an official statement on behalf of Champaign County Bikes, but speaking for the board, I'm Charlie Smythe, Chair of Champaign County Bikes, and we support any kind of bike infrastructure that can be placed on University Avenue. We consider it a serious safety threat for the many people we see walking and biking by necessity along that street. It's an equity issue, bottom line. And there are a number of treatments that could be used. I view it as a suburban industrial street, and it's very wide. It has a lot of potential. Ed Barsati with Ride Illinois has pointed out a number of possibilities. We're in contact with Bob Nelson, the IDOT District 5 engineer, as well about it. And I know that John is going to be meeting with their staff as well, and we will be meeting with them as well. So there's some very interesting possibilities here, and I'm going to let Jeff take over and speak to what some of those possibilities are.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Yockey.
Hello, my name is Jeff Yockey, 304 West Washington Street, Urbana. I'm a member of Champaign County Bikes, bike commuter, and excited to be here at the Urbana Basketball and Pedestrian Advisory Committee tonight.
Do you have handouts for us? You can catch your breath and give us some handouts.
One of each of those. Before you look at them, I'll just make a couple comments. The game of basketball, been around for a long time. But it's changed over time. We might not realize it, but the game was threatened. People were losing interest. Fans weren't liking it. It was declining. And so they thought about that. And there's nothing better at a basketball game than to have a buzzer beater shot right at the end. Tie game, don't know what's going on, the clock's going down, somebody launches a shot, and the outcome is up in the air, right? Well, in 1954, 68 years ago, somebody had the idea of introducing a shot clock to the game. So every time you had a possession, a clock started going down, and the game got interesting again. And people couldn't stall, they couldn't mess around, they had to go to the basket and shoot, and everybody could see the shot. Revolutionized the game of basketball. It didn't change the dimensions of the court. It didn't change 95% of the rules of the game. It just said, once you get the ball, you got 24 seconds to get your first shot off. Great. The year I was a high school senior, 1979, they introduced a second rule, changed the game of basketball again. Again, didn't change the dimensions of the court, didn't change 95% of the rules. They just added a strip of paint that started out kind of under the basket on one side, went around and back, and they called it the three-point line. 1979, changed the game again. It reallocated the space that was on the court into places where you could shoot and get 3 points or 2 points. I want to say that that's a little bit of the picture of what I think is a possibility for the project on East University. And that's the handout that I've given you. That the roadway is defined by the curbs. I think it's 54 feet, something like that. The resurfacing project that IDOT has authorized and will be putting into completion allows us a chance to reallocate the space. It's currently, through most of the way, 4 lanes. We can reallocate it through a road diet and go from a 4 to a 3. We gain a turn lane, and we can make as generous as 14 feet. That's very convenient for buses, large vehicles. It gives you a place to sit there where you don't have to worry about somebody zipping and taking off your rearview mirror. We can do that have travel lanes in each direction, and have bicycle lanes that are generous to get you out of the curb. That also allows you to have a right turn lane where that's needed. That's sweet. Bike lanes and right turn lanes work well together, and our community is learning how to do that. It also gives us a chance to install crosswalks where we need them with pedestrian refuge areas. So you can get across one lane, hold out, and make the next one at Maple and at Cottage Grove, two important accesses to get across north and south. The other thing, if we go back to the basketball game, they reallocated space with the use of a painted line. We get to do that. They also changed the speed of the game. And speed's really important. It's one of the things that we can control and makes a huge difference on whether somebody dies or gets injured, or whether the injury is serious or whether it's not. And so I think we can reduce the speed on that section of road and cut it back. It will make hardly any difference. I did the math from Casey's all the way down to 5 Points, that area. It's like 18 seconds or something, not that much. And you've got a light there that's going to stop you 50% of the time anyway. But we can make it safer. We can make it safer for pedestrians to get across. Reduce the differential between the speed of a bicycle and the speed of the cars. There's lots of other things I could say about that. I know it's a conversation the city's going to have with IDOT. Many people and stakeholders have submitted their input to IDOT and are looking for a chance to have a discussion with them. So that's all ahead. I just want to kind of bring it to you. This is just sort of a summary of my report, my letters to Bob Nelson and his IDOT crew. Sorry, still a little out of breath. There's also a big equity piece, and I'll just allude to the fact that, you know the Dr. Seuss book, The Lorax? I mean, if I had a mascot, it would be like the Lorax, right? The first line of that book is, I am the Lorax, I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees because I speak for the trees, for trees have no tongues, and I'm asking you, sir, at the top of my lungs, stop cutting down truffula trees. All right, that's the first 2 pages. But I think one of the jobs as advocates is to speak for people that may not be represented, may not be at the table. And there's lots of people in trailer courts along that area that live off of Main Street who, if they want to access Carl Hospital or some of the other destinations, university is a corridor, and we can make it a good corridor for them. And they can have access without being dangerous. And I think what's coming up, we can't quite see it yet, but it's on the horizon, it's present in our world, are e-bikes. It's going to get tougher if you're poor. To have a second mode of transportation in your house that's an e-bike that can get you distance, that gives you more confidence on the road, that doesn't cost a lot of money. I think those audiences are going to use this corridor. So I think as we envision this road and the use of it, we need to think about those audiences, and that they're not going to often become bike commuters. I think a lot of them are going to be e-bike users in the future.
We've gone past 5 minutes.
So thank you very much.
Okay,
Oh.
thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I don't think our shot clock is working.
I think that's my job. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Charlie. Okay, next is unfinished business, BPEC goals. So Kara sent around the updated goals. There weren't a lot of changes. Do people want to go through them again and kind of verify? Yeah, she put it on there. We weren't sure what people wanted to do, so. Yeah, I guess just kind of go through them and verify. Look for your name, and if your name's on something that you didn't agree for it to be on, be sure to let us know. That's the main thrust. And if there's anything left off, but I think we narrowed it down, and, well, didn't narrow it down a lot. We organized it a lot, and I think the subjects are pretty close to what we wanted. But yeah, kind of be sure your name isn't on something that you didn't agree to.
Doesn't sound like it.
What now? Okay. So there's only 12 slides. I cut out a few, and that was basically just the background information on how I took, everyone's individual ideas and then organized them, got rid of some of the duplicates, and then moved into here.
Is your monitor on?
No,
There's a button in the lower right-hand corner.
So a quick review, our 5 themes that we didn't really edit the themes, we just added some of the things underneath them were research and planning, evaluation and response, culture and communication, equity, and then applications. And I added in italics down here that on the upcoming slides, if your name is associated with something, it was because you had volunteered and that was something to interest you and you wanted to move the goal forward. And we had a really good discussion. I think maybe we were only missing Bruce, and you did submit a goal, so it was pretty much across the board. BPAC came together to make these. So this was our first theme, research and planning. Some of this was edited to talk about the policy documents. So this covers planning and policy, improved data, and then research on best practices. And so this bullet point at the bottom was where we grouped together all of the things related to planning, policy, and ordinances. And so there's individual names, and then I think Bill wanted to be a part of this too, and so your name is just kind of generally under the first one. But I don't think that I need to read all of these since it was sent out and we talked about it last time. Just let me know now or later if your name is next to something that you didn't actually volunteer for. The next theme was evaluation and response. So this was review of existing city plans and initiatives, providing recommendations, and collaboration with other agencies as well.
I just, on the previous slide, I don't think Bruce was here, but make sure that your name is under e-bikes. I don't know if you noticed, so we volunteered you for that. Okay. Okay.
Don't be shy about turning your mic on, too.
Without trying to reinvent the wheel or design infrastructure out of the blue, let's see what others, keep an eye on what other places are doing to accommodate this pretty dramatic change.
Okay, thanks.
The third theme was culture and communication, and this talked about growing the city's bicycle and ped-friendly culture and also how we communicate these values. And so you can see some of our goals were talking about policies and pedestrian concerns, especially when it comes to street maintenance, for example, and how that affects bikes and peds, outreach programs, bicycle-friendly business applications, and then continuing education opportunities for commissioners. And then I just put Annie and Sue at the bottom of this slide. I think that you were both interested in the overall topic. Equity, so implement the Equity and Quality of Life project and improve safety and accessibility. So the 2 bullet points are the EQL and then also working with different partners to improve safety and accessibility for disabled and elderly persons. So this has to do with bus schedules, designs, audio walk signals, sidewalk connectivity and maintenance, which includes snow removal, and then helping to understand some of these barriers by working with PACE. Lastly was applications for funding and program recognition, and we have ITEP, Bicycle Friendly Community Gold status, and then also Vision Zero funding, but also any other funding that helps to further our BPAC goals and projects. And that's it.
Okay, great, thanks. Any comments on that? We probably do want a motion to approve them officially, but go ahead. Sue?
Yes, Nancy, I would be willing, like, to me, the disabilities access is all part of the culture thing too, so I'd be glad to, like, be helping out with that.
Good. Well, I make a motion that we approve the goals for BPAC.
Second.
Bruce.
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Cynthia and seconded by Bruce. Any discussion? I'd say thanks, Kara, for help organizing everything and putting it all together. You did a good job of getting our thoughts on paper and organized.
Awesome, thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much.
And I promised, and I didn't do it because, well, you know, life. But I promised I would put together an Airtable that would incorporate all these goals, which would allow us to kind of be on track at every meeting and kind of check in where we are and check out where sort of, what's happening. And so I'm saying it out loud. So let me agree to see if I can get that done in the next either 30 or 60 days. So I'll set up an Airtable and I'll show you what it just sounds very abstract until I make it. And once you see it, you'll understand. There's just campaigns and goals and mission, and it all just works together for your communications plan. So I'm just saying I will do that.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Annie. Okay, next is BPAC participation in Bike Month. Cynthia.
I have 2 information items that are sort of unfinished business but don't require any action. Can I just share those here? First, you all passed a motion asking Nancy and I to present the information about the bus stops on campus to Kuwats, which we did. And, they were very interested. We sent them our presentation. It's very confusing about who's responsible for what, so they're going to work all of that out. And hopefully a number of those issues will be addressed. And then there was one other thing. Now my brain went blank. I was going to update you all on. Well, I will just say next month the interns will be ready to do a presentation on their review of the bicycle master plan. And so next month we'll be able to take a look at that. Regarding participation in Bike Month, last month we discussed, or I guess I talked about several options for BPAC members to participate. I think it's really important that BPAC do something as a group and the public sees us there as an entity to be engaged with. And so I wanted to ask you all, what would you like to do? We could do any number of things. We could help co-host a ride. We could have a table at the farmer's market. We can do any number of things, but I wanted to hear what you all want to do, or do you want to help come with Bike and Roll to School Day? I would like for BPAC members to say, yes, I will do this or that or the other, and then we can work with our communications person Bridget, to talk about what we're doing in the community to promote safety during Bike Month. So that's all I have to say. I would like to hear from you about what you would like to do.
Okay, discussion or ideas? I think, Annie, you and I talked a little bit about trying to put together some suggestions for Bridget to do Bike Month postings on Facebook, kind of like they did for Black History Month, but probably not as many. Have you thought about that at all?
I have thought about that. Yeah, basically it would be like a photograph of a person and like, what's your favorite place to bike? How often do you bike? Like things like that. It's a matter of actually doing the campaign, but I do love the idea of the campaign. So it's trying to figure out how to do the campaign. But I think that would be very strong because it would be photographs of people who bike, and then just some simple questions like your favorite thing about Urbana or your favorite place to bike in Urbana, so I've written down basically some interview questions and thought about that. So I'm not sure though if that's like BPAC or if because I think we would just feed those to Bridget and then Bridget would just populate her social sites with those.
I think it would be helpful to say Urbana has a bicycle and pedestrian advisory commission. We are working for you. I just don't think the community understands that they can come to us because we are not visible.
We could also each do like an interview ourselves and then find one other person, and then right there is at least half the month for days. Also, if we're gonna be more public, matching t-shirts are awesome.
As the farmer's market comes on in May, a table to facilitate registration of bikes. Easy enough just to
Great
get out
idea.
the sign-up sheets. People won't have their bikes with them likely, but they'll take that home, fill it out possibly, and send it in, and one small step against theft. And it's a way of showing our presence.
I'll add that Bridget was soliciting ideas for her May newsletter coming up, and that's by May 9th, I believe it's going out. So we still have time to get in that.
Do we have any kind of information brochure about BPAC? I don't think I've ever seen one. It'd be nice if we could get Bridget to help us. It probably, I don't know if we have time before May 1st, but for all these things, if we have something at farmer's market, or if we don't have our own table, we can always show up at Champaign County Bike Table or at the Urbana Welcome Table or something. And if we have a button that says I'm with BPAC and some pamphlets and
That
start
would be
some
great.
conversations with people, we could always do
That'd
stuff
be
like
great.
that. But I think you do need some kind of
Brochure.
handout or something to kind of show, you know,
And
what
our
you are.
contact info, and maybe, the bike plan, the ped plan, the wayfinding plan, Vision Zero, and links to all of those for people, or maybe QR codes.
I'm sorry, Cynthia, you said, so it would be a handout, who is BPAC, with contact information on there, and that contact, I would have to.
Yeah, and sort of our mission, and then say, we have a bicycle master plan, and have a link. We have a pedestrian master plan, and the link, a wayfinding plan, a link, and Vision Zero. I think those are our 4 primary sort of documents and campaigns we have underway. And we can also stick these under, the goals that we just passed in terms of various things that we're working on. Okay.
Question regarding the matching t-shirts. No, I'm serious. I try, at this point, Cara is like my communications goddess. I'm just so impressed with, she herded us. We're just like, it's like herding cats, and she somehow like put us into this PowerPoint presentation, which is amazing. So my question about the t-shirts are, we obviously get t-shirts every year for Bike Month, or are you thinking something slightly different, Cara? Are you thinking of like really specific shirts that say BPAC on them?
I mean, first of all, I'm not sure where the funding's coming from, so let's just throw that out there. But like every time I'm representing the Park District, I just have a big old Park District logo on my shirt. And so when we're talking to people, it just says BPAC on the front or the back, and then people know that it exists and that we're part of it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out, if you were thinking, because like Bill was saying pins are not, I'm just trying to work through, as a person
Pins
who's
are
made quite a bit of
pretty-
swag
yeah.
in her lifetime, I
We
can,
could make buttons.
Yeah.
Those are pretty inexpensive.
yeah. Well, let me just think about it for a minute.
I have access to a button maker.
Never mind. We got access to a button maker, people. It's all coming together.
Great. Any other things people want to help out with? During Bike Month, we have some rides. We have Bike and Roll to School Day. By the way, we have over 100 kids signed up, and over 80 of those are at Urbana Middle School. So we're going to have a big station there that morning, and so anyone who would like to help, I'll try to remember, I'll make a note to myself to send you all the volunteer sign up, because you could sign up for whatever time period you want to there, because they start at different times. The high school starts at 8 and the middle school starts at 8:50, if I remember correctly.
Speaking of the middle school, Cynthia sent an email with those new bike racks completely full from the city of Urbana. So thank you, city of Urbana, for helping make that happen. Oh, there you go. There's some social media. Thank you, city of,
I think those are the main things that I had. We have a Mother's day ride in May.
Rite
and
of Silence is,
The Rite of Silence, we have in May. And I can certainly list those dates if we would like to do that.
And it'd be great to get that on social media too, because the Urbana
Absolutely.
Police accompanied the ride last year.
Yeah. And sometimes in the past, we've asked for a police escort. Should we ask to do that again?
I think Charlie took care of that last year.
Oh, so we want to get Charlie to do it. All right, that works for
But
me.
it was great. I used, when I made the annual report presentation to city council, I included a video of Rite of Silence showing
Oh,
the police
good.
officers there, so I think council at
And it
least
made,
saw that.
it made the ride so great because they blocked intersections and we were able to go through and we, they just corked them for us and we were just able to ride right through. It was great. They were just absolutely fantastic and they were experiencing the loss of a colleague, so it was also
Mhm.
it was also good for them, but, it is what it is.
We have a date for that,
17th?
17th?
I'm not sure. 18th? It's that Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else about Bike Month?
Well, this isn't Bike Month, but this Friday, there's an Earth Day bike ride. We'll be meeting at Common Ground Food Co-op. So, warm up for Bike Month. Come to that. We'll be meeting at 5:30 and making signs and art for our bikes and biking to rigs. The Mother's Day ride is May 8th at 2 p.m. There is a, May 14th full flower moon bike ride. Meets at Meadowbrook Park at 6:50. The Rite of Silence is May 18th at 6 p.m. They meet at the iHotel in the parking lot on the north side. And so you can find these things on the CU Bike Month website calendar and also on Facebook. And the public is welcome to come. They are right at your own risk events, and we request that people wear helmets. So we can run through basic rules of the road, but otherwise we just plan on people following the rules along with us. So that's all I have for Bike Month.
That's cubikemonth.org, is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
So Cynthia, the one thing I heard people talk a lot about that seem interested in is tabling at the farmer's market. Do you know how we would go about that?
Well, I know Champaign County Bikes is planning on having a table, and we could certainly partner with them.
Okay.
We just need to make sure we only have 2 or 3 of us there, so that we don't violate the open meeting law. And so if you guys would just let us know which Saturdays you're planning to be there. You're going to be there all 4? Okay. So we have an opportunity there. We're probably looking at the middle of the month before we're ready with our buttons and brochures and whatever. But we could pick a Saturday that we want to do that. And we could do that now if you want, if that helps get everything done.
Just as long as I know that there's I don't want to do what I did for the website, which was redesign and spend all this time
And nothing
doing it and
happens.
nothing ever happened.
Yeah,
So,
I understand.
so I'm happy to try to figure out some branding for BPAC and put together this brochure. And they'll have Bike Month. I'm sure they'll have Bike Month stuff out. So I think for us, our focus is truly BPAC. So
The 7th or the 14th, and we could set up a sign-up form and send that along, so that if you would like to come and help at the booth one of those days and represent BPAC, we could do that. That might be a sign-up for,
Being able to easily be identified as BPAC would be the key, because there would be people there who wouldn't be representing BPAC, so you want to stand out in some way. Unless we, or even if we go to the Urbana Welcome Center booth, that's another possibility, is headquartering ourselves there.
yeah.
But either way, we definitely need some way to stand out.
Great, thank you all, I appreciate you stepping up. Charlie wants to ask a question or say something? but I'm not the chair. You should be in charge here.
Go ahead,
I
Charlie.
was just gonna say
I'm
is
done.
that you can get a banner like from Vistaprint for like $50-$60, you know, that says BPAC or Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Commission or something like that. And you can put that, you know, you can join us over by the bike racks, CCB table, or, you know, the city table as well. But having a banner like that would at least get you started.
That's a good idea. Okay. So, and you have Bridget's contact information, so you can work with her on if you need like Urbana logos or anything like that.
By the way, she's going to be leaving on vacation. Hang on here a second. She just sent me those dates because I have to send her the press release for Bike to School Day. So, Andy, we've got a really short window here for her to get some of this stuff before she leaves town. She leaves on vacation. Where is that? Irk. I had that email here earlier. It's very soon. Bridget.
John, do you know if we had some small expenses like that, we don't really have a budget. Is there some potential for mayoral discretionary money or something to provide $100 or $200 to come up with some promotional materials or a banner or something if we need it?
Sorry, new guy, but yeah, I can ask for sure.
Okay, thanks.
I'll give it to you later, Andy.
Okay.
It's working very slowly.
Let's go on then. Reports of city officials, staff, and reports of committees. I just have a couple things I'll report, and then I know John has a couple things. I don't think there's, well, I'll just start this and see if there's any committee reports. So I'll just report that I did present our annual report to City Council a couple weeks ago, and it was pretty well received. I went a little bit over my time. I wasn't watching the clock. But there were a couple questions and a comment from Sharice that I didn't have any pictures in the presentation of areas north of University Avenue, which is true, and that I should have in order to be more inclusive. But I missed the opportunity, and part of it was I went around and just took pictures between my house and downtown because I was on my way to downtown, took pictures of bad sidewalks and stuff like that and put them in the presentation. But you could do that anywhere in town, pretty much. You could find a bad sidewalk. And I should have gone up and taken some in other neighborhoods. But I missed the opportunity to point out that we don't determine which sidewalks get fixed, and that Public Works now is working on a program, a systematic program to repair them as needed. So I followed up with Sharice, and she remembers the sidewalk inventory that we did to make sure that she was aware of that. But I kind of felt bad for missing that opportunity to highlight that change in Public Works stance. So.
And Bill, does she know that we have an opening on BPAC and we would love someone from her ward?
I don't think we have one anymore.
We don't?
Bruce filled one. We have one for a youth member. That's the only opening we have.
Okay.
But yeah, I could mention that. Okay. And then I followed up with her by email and pointed out some of the other issues in her ward that we're aware of. And then we submitted 2 letters of support. One you approved for the Florida Avenue project, raise funding. That's the new federal program that replaced the Tiger grants.
Yeah.
And the other one recently was for potentially discretionary funding, which is discretionary, but it'd be federal funding for the Philo, Colorado, Anderson area. So we submitted a letter of support for that too.
Great.
That's all I had. So any committee reports before we move to staff reports? Nothing new on Vision Zero.
Well, we are waiting for the release of state funding that is going to be available to do Vision Zero studies and plans as part of the funding that came through Congress. And once those funds are released, we should make an application. And I'm assuming, I don't see how you can do a plan or a study without paying for staff time. So we would probably be looking at contracting with someone to help do that study and have the grant pay for it. Is my guess of how that's going to work.
Okay.
Also, I've collected the crash reports for all of 2021 and up to the present for 2022, so I could report on that at the next meeting if we want to put that on the agenda.
Okay.
Ped bike crashes, not all crashes.
Mm-hmm.
Way too many.
Okay, thanks. So I guess we're ready for staff reports. John, or Carol, whoever wants to go first.
I think we're having a little difficulty this evening getting things both on your monitors and on the screen, so I apologize to anybody that's watching this remotely that you can't see this. This is an update, just giving you this is sort of like a check-in with you all about how things are going with the Equity and Quality of Life project. And so I just want to let you know that we closed submissions on April 1st, and this is my pack of submissions, and believe it or not, they're not all from Bill Brown, but there was a good chunk from Bill Brown. Zip file of submissions from Bill Brown. But it's actually been just wonderful. They came from all over the city, and there's about 85 in here, and so this is a work in progress. So this is just a check-in. This is not finished by any means, and so I want to use a couple of these to just give you examples of how this is going and how this is shaking out. So I'm just going to start with number 3 on the list. This list, by the way, you'll notice that all of the submissions on the list have 30 points in the column low to mod income area. So in order to get to do all of the scoring that we talked about when we were sort of establishing the how we were going to rack and stack these projects, I have to rely on other staff to do some of the scoring, and I have to rely on what's her job? Melissa Hendry in the police department. She does the statistics and stuff. The crime analyst, that's the word I'm looking for. And so I didn't want her to have to score things that ultimately wouldn't make the cut. So I have focused her on scoring things that are in the low to mod income area because this is all tilted towards that. So these are everything that's been pulled out and scored so far. So it's 65 projects out of 85 total that have been scored on the low to mod, and then anything that's low to mod 30 points then has been scored. I got data from Melissa so I could do the additional scoring. And then the connectivity, I'll describe that in more detail at another time, but that I relied on the pedestrian master plan to do that. And then you'll see the totals in the final column and how they're kind of coming out. So let me just start with the first one, and these are just a couple of examples I'm going to walk through, and then I'll answer any questions that you have and tell you what next steps are going to be for us. So this was one of the first ones that came in. It was the block along Silver Street between Fletcher and Philo, and what was suggested, and these are abbreviations, someone suggested that they need sidewalks and they need streetlights. And so the first sorry about that, I moved it. The first column then, I asked myself a couple things. One is it outside the city limits? Because we did get a few submissions. So anything and everybody's been communicated with if they had a project that was outside the city limits and didn't qualify. Then I asked, is it operational? And you'll see when I go down how we're handling operational ones. But this is about capital. This is not about operational things. So we're dealing with operational things in a separate way. That's not the purpose of this project. Then start to do the rankings and stuff. And as I mentioned, I actually start with the low to moderate income area, but then ranking on the physical safety and the personal safety. And if you remember, those are things related to the physical safety was the points were, the various points were for documented fatality at this location within the last 5 years, documented injury at this location in the past 5 years, and accident history within the past 5 years. And then for personal safety, it's these crime groups. So it's these NIBRs, Group A crimes, which are more serious crimes, and then Group B crimes, which are still serious but less serious than Group A crimes. So the ones that have a score that's in red are the ones that are scoring pretty high on the crime statistics. And then I might have a note there, as I do on the first one, which is number 3, that under personal safety, this has, of all the scoring of these projects, this has the highest number of NIBRs Group A crimes, 182. And then the second highest number of Group B crimes, 63 of all the locations surveyed. So if you look in the final column and you just kind of scan down, you'll see 75 points is the highest number of points that any of these has scored, and this is one of them. So this, to me, says this is a block we need to pay a lot of attention to. They have serious issues. We can really change things here. So the next step that I want to do with the projects that are scoring the highest so far, and I have to finish the last 20 or so, is to then sit with John and talk about scope. Because even though a specific block has been mentioned, if we should go another block this direction, another block that direction, then we want to scope that project as a 3-block project instead of a 1-block project. And we have to kind of work through that. And then we can put an approximate price tag on it. And then when we come back and we say to you all, we need your help to rack and stack these things, you'll have a sense of how big is this project, what's the price tag associated with it, and then how many of these can we kind of cobble together. So I wanted to use another one as an example. So just to slide down to number 9, which is North Broadway Avenue between University and Country Club Road. So there were a couple things that were on their list. One is speed limit signs. Okay, then I asked, is it operational? Yes. Then it doesn't get scored any beyond that because that's an operational issue and I've sat with John and Tim Cowan and talked through every one of them that's an operational issue. Like here's what has been stated and what can we do by way of follow-up. And then at the end of all of this, I hope to write back to everybody that made a submission and say, here's what happened. And we've already taken action on some things that people submitted. We had requests for some stop signs, and that's all been taken care of in a particular neighborhood. Then also on this particular submission, they asked for traffic calming. So another thing is every time there's some request for traffic calming or there's an issue raised about speeding, then John has taken that and we're doing a speed study because just because someone says they're speeding doesn't mean necessarily that that is borne out with data. But once it is, then that will also be addressed through the scoring process if something is warranted, and we go forth from there if it scores high enough and we have established that there is in fact a speeding problem. So
can I make a quick comment on that point?
Absolutely.
Sometimes, like for traffic calming and speed limit signs, you can get those combined. Like your speed is sign, like we have across from the middle school. I think the middle school paid for that themselves. And from what I understand, that the newer ones will also keep track of the statistics on the speed, like our speed trailer does now. So you could kind of combine that and do your speed study and put up a sign. I don't know whether it'd have to be temporary or permanent, but I guess you could put it up temporarily, and if it's working or if, conditions suggest that it's possible. But so I don't know, there's some expense there. I don't know if it's completely operational, but that's kind of what I had in mind in one or two of my submissions, so.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say we have those signs also on Washington by Dr. Williams, and on Florida by Wiley. Those were paid for by the Safe Routes to School grant. They're solar powered, but I don't think they can collect data. Yeah, I bet the new ones can, but those are pretty old. It's probably been 10 or 12 years at least since we put those in. Because Jennifer Selby was the one who applied for that grant. But I think those are really effective. I think that you're right. We could combine that as a traffic calming and adding the speed limit sign.
Yeah, so,
It
I
does
mean,
both
these are
at
all
the same
things
time.
that we have to, you know, we have limited resources, and one thing we do want to establish, because I do think it's important, is if we're going to deploy resources, we have to deploy them where there's an actual problem.
Right.
And not just because someone says, hey, I think they're speeding on my street. You know, we're still dealing with limited resources. So those are just a couple of examples of how this work is progressing. And as I mentioned, I have about 20 left to go through. They won't all, they're not all in the low to mod area, so they won't get further scoring. So this list won't grow by 20. This list will grow by a few more. And there was one neighborhood that came in kind of late that a lot of the requests were the same. So they'll either score or they won't score. It's not. There is no metric. There are no points added for multiple entries. So I think that's all I wanted to update you on. I think I'm just really pleased with the breadth of submissions that we've had, and what we do want to do is to take a page out of the book that Rachel Storm, when she had a grant from AARP to do some artwork in community gardens, and they did sort of a before and after with the people. So once the selections are made, we want to go to those people who made those submissions and ask them, you know, tell us in your own words and why you submitted this, and then after we do the installations, talk about what's changed, so that it's really a very personal thing about how they've been impacted. So. So anyway, and you know, we might do this as I think we anticipated. We might not spend the whole $2 million in the first year, and we might phase it out. I'm guessing that streetlights in particular are a long lead item. They were earlier in COVID, and it probably hasn't gotten any better. So we'll have to see. But I think streetlights are really going to change things for some of these neighborhoods. So if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I was just saying, I love that you're gonna be doing before and after with people. That's gonna, I think it's really important, because they'll understand that the city is working for them, that this money was implemented, and that small changes and small suggestions can make a big difference. So that's really powerful. I'm glad you're doing that.
Thank you. Rachel gets the credit. She inspired it. Right.
Cynthia?
I know this isn't a comprehensive list, but I just wanted to ask, I'm assuming Vodder Street is also on your list for sidewalks and streetlights? There are no sidewalks on Vodder.
I don't know that anybody submitted anything from Vodder.
Oh,
So I'm guessing that they didn't, because they would have scored and they would have gotten the 30 points
Wow,
in the low to
okay.
mod.
there are a whole lot of places I think we could do work, but I just assumed that someone would point out there are no sidewalks between Silver and Colorado, and everybody is walking in the street in that section of roadway. It would score at least as high as Silver on the numbers that you have here.
Right.
And there's no street lights either, I don't think.
Well, and we might find when we scope this out, I mean, remember
That
these
you would
are,
add that in?
yeah, but
Okay.
we don't want this to grow into, I mean, we could have figured out on our own where all these investments should be made, but we wanted it to be generated by people in the community, so
Right.
that it would be like, we are listening to you.
Right.
And so I don't want this project to grow into a $1 million, $2 million project all on its own. So that's some of the things we'll take into consideration when we're setting the scope.
Yeah.
But I mean, I appreciate what you're saying. And when I was here originally, you're like, well, we have the pedestrian master plan and it has all these, things already pointed out. Of course,
Well, I'm sorry that neighborhood didn't get those submitted, because I think that those are really important. I know on Silver, there's a bus route, and so that may have been part of where that recommendation came from, whereas the residents who live on Botter, they may just not have gotten plugged into this the way that we would have liked.
Sure.
Okay.
And we might, if, we'll see how this goes, and we might have other rounds, and we'll make a change incrementally, which is how it's usually done.
I know when I redid my house, I'd paint one room, and then I'd realize, the baseboard needs to be replaced. So we might run into that. We'll get some sidewalks on Silver Street, and then we'll say, oh, but look how bad Vader looks, and stuff
Right.
like that. So it may happen the next year or something.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
And the other thing too is, like, again, once you do the, the campaign, essentially the campaign of like, thank you for submitting your ideas, here are the things, you're gonna get more suggestions, right? You're gonna get more people
Right.
with more ideas, and for better and for worse.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Carol.
you.
So will you be back next month, do you think, or?
I'm not sure. That depends on how quickly we can start to do some of the scoping, and it's budget season. We're developing budget, and we're doing some other things that are taking up a lot of staff time. So it'll be in the next couple of months.
Okay, and so are you going to release the full list of all 85 to the city council at some point?
They had asked me for the forms that were submitted, and I gave that to them.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, if you're interested in it, I can do that. It's a lot, but I have a compressed file that has it all in.
I don't know. What do people think? Want to let her do her job?
Just the self-awareness in that comment is just so meaningful to me, seriously.
Okay, I think.
So do you want the file or not?
We'll hold off for now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay. And John's next.
All right, thanks. I have a couple things I'll touch on, and then a couple other topics I had are going to be new business items, so I won't touch on those just yet. Let's see, Audrey, do you mind if I think if I can insert another thumb drive here?
Yeah, it should be possible to just pull it out.
Oh, okay. Let me, hopefully I don't break it. Here we go. So a couple things I wanted to touch on real quick. It's going to seem a little out of order, but Lincoln Avenue corridor study, so this will make sense following on the Florida Avenue corridor study you'll talk about in a sec, but the city is going to work with RPC to start a Lincoln Avenue corridor study going from Florida Avenue up to Green Street. With RPC's current workload, the earliest they'll be able to start is January of 2023, but that also gives time for, they're applying for a safety grant, see if that will pay for the study. If we don't get the grant, the city will be funding the study, but we look forward to that. I know there's a number of intersections that show up as high safety concerns, and I want to say Oregon was one of the highest ones, but no, we look forward to that. For the bicycle-friendly community application, this will be another example of RPC making us look good. They are starting now with data collection for the application, especially in the university before students go away for the end of the semester. And the real good heads up on RPC there. My understanding is that the application information, the details of the application haven't been released quite yet, and so we're holding off to see what that is, and then we'll scope the whole application with RPC and move that forward. Okay. Any questions or comments about those? touch on the Florida Avenue corridor study, if it's all right, Bill. And so, as some of you may be aware, RPC has recently updated their corridor study webpage to show their kind of concluding analysis and recommendations for the future improvements, which includes some of this intersection analysis that I was going to just touch on briefly. And I definitely encourage everyone to, if you haven't gotten a chance to, take a look at it. What I'm going to do actually is share with the commission the RAISE grant application that MTD produced, and it will have links within that application to RPC's corridor study website, along with some other resources. So won't get into all the details there, but definitely provide it for the commission to review after the meeting. So as far as the intersection kind of alternative analysis went, so for this corridor, Lincoln from Wright Street over to, now I'm blanking on it, but it's the first street after Vine. You got the four main intersections are Lincoln, Orchard, Race, and Vine in there. And so basically ran through about 6 scenarios, modeling traffic for future scenarios with the current conditions, traffic signals at Lincoln and Orchard, four-way stops at Race and Vine, with various iterations of new signalized intersections at Race and Vine, roundabouts at some or all of the intersections, to see what effect that would have on traffic. And the short of it is that the roundabouts were not providing substantially improved traffic flow through the corridor to justify their additional cost and the additional right-of-way acquisitions that would be required. So it's tough in this densely populated corridor right here to get the roundabouts to work out economically, but we will see substantial traffic flow improvements for the future with the signalized intersections. And some of the other aspects that I think the commission will be really interested to see is some of the bicycle accommodations, not only the, of course, the shared use path from Lincoln Avenue to Race Street, but also some of the specific treatments at the Race Street intersection to transition bikes from the on-street bike lanes to the shared use path. And I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the technical terms, but some of the special turning movements for bicycles. And we also...
I think there's a two-stage right turn.
Yes, that's it.
Two-stage, one of those green bike boxes. Yeah.
That's right, that's right.
John, can you put the microphone closer to your mouth?
I'm sorry, okay. Sorry about that. Yes, a two-stage bicycle turning movement there at Race Street. And I know that through, with the all-new traffic signals going in this corridor, we're looking at what kind of, bicycle, activation, and, bicycle detection signals we can get where we have the on-street bike traffic. Another aspect for like active transportation, really nice bus cutouts for MTD, so they're able to swing off out of traffic like we see on Green Street. It was kind of a recent iteration of that. But I think that was... Yeah, and so then the RAISE grant application, that was submitted just last week. Yes, just last week. So we were asking for $11 million. Again, it was an effort led by MTD. And I have the final draft of it. It's a 29-page document that I will share with the commission after this meeting. But be happy to answer any questions about Florida Avenue the commission has.
Do you know when when they do those corridors, you said there were 6 scenarios, the corridor study and the traffic flow and everything. Do they have a way of modeling impact on crash severity? I know one of the arguments for roundabouts is the crash types are different. You might get a side swipe or something, but not too
Right.
severe usually, instead of the T-bone kind of crashes. Do
Mhm.
they have a way of incorporating that into their models, or is the outcome mostly how efficient it moves traffic?
The modeling is mostly really just volumes of traffic moving at times. The benefit cost analysis that RPC did was very extensive, and they do have various things they account for, differences in emissions because of different idling times, differences in the cost to society of accidents that as many of you are probably aware, signalized intersections are not in general safer than roundabouts in terms of number of crashes, severity of crashes that will happen. And so those are given the kind of societal costs and weighed in those benefit cost analysis.
Okay. Other questions?
I was just going to follow up on that. The analysis said part of the problem is the design of the roundabouts for the bus movements along this corridor was going to create a roundabout design that wasn't going to accomplish our goals because they'd have to build mountable, and it was that was one of the issues with it was because of the heavy bus traffic. And then there was also going to be some necessity for right-of-way acquisition. So I haven't read it all in detail, but those were a couple of things I picked up in looking through it this afternoon.
Yeah, that was one thing, definitely, Cynthia, that we talked about a decent amount with RPC was, like you're saying, a smaller roundabout that would be mountable. The idea would be that it would be only for certain vehicles, but we were concerned that might not, in practice, work. If people weren't familiar with how it was supposed to work, they might see buses go over it and say, well, I can go over it too, So it was a concern until we get more familiar with how they work in the community. Yeah.
I would just like to say we'll never get more familiar with them because we're never going to put any in, even though they drastically reduce crash injury, they drastically reduce electrical costs, and they are much easier and a more fairer use for people who are not in a motorized vehicle. For me, like this area, I am going to be driving in. It's by my house. I'm going to drive in it. I'm going to bike in it. I'm going to walk in it. And it was, when people were talking about University Avenue, I used to drive to landscape recycling, and because that was a 4-lane highway, it's so scary because people are going so fast, and you need to make a left-hand turn, and I would never go to that park over there because people, again, are going so fast. There's no way for me to get there. And it's like, these are all the costs that we don't ever talk about. And so we just accept it, and then we say another time. So to me, it's just exhausting because I see all these people trying to get across that street to go to the Arboretum, to go to athletic games, to, go look at blooming flowers, or me just trying to cross that street. I mean, it's a mess. And then I know that the city of Urbana is going to put in beg lights because the city of Urbana puts in beg lights everywhere. And it's like they just did this brand new beautiful intersection at Lincoln and Green, and you have to race over and find the button and push it. And then you got to race over to the other one and push it. And you're like pushing the buttons, and you're like playing the game. And it's I mean, personally, it's just exhausting. I'm like, come on, when are we just going to get over it? And this is not aimed at you because I know this is not your thing, but I'm just exhausted. That's all. I'm just exhausted, and I'm trying to be calm. I mean, I'm trying to be patient, but I just don't know at what point. Like at what point, like that intersection is massive, absolutely massive. But I'm sure we'll put in beg buttons, and I'm sure there'll be all these like waiting around, and it'll look like that intersection trying to get to the Walgreens, You know, and I almost got killed just riding my bike over here by the Schnooks, you know, biking home. I tried following the, you know, the traffic. And it's just, it's exhausting. That's all.
So Annie, there, on the website, you can submit comments. And so you can also do that.
Cynthia, thank you. I was remiss saying that the public involvement period's not over. There's going to be another round of public involvement with the corridor study.
You can express your exasperation there.
The,
I was-
I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead.
The shared use path between, on Florida, between Lincoln and Race will be on the south side, right?
It will be, yes.
That's heavily university turf. Are they acquiescing to that or being proactive in helping us do that, or?
Yeah, we had a really great meeting with university staff, and chancellors signed off on it. It's we're getting a lot of great support from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice if they kicked in a few bucks too, but I guess that's too much to ask. But
Yeah, I think they did help pay for the traffic light at Orchard at one point.
We're essentially getting some free land
all right.
to some extent. And we'll see. It's also not determined who will maintain the path at the end of the day. So, yeah, exactly. But I think we'll work it out. I think it's a good
So
discussion.
it's going to go across in front of the president's house. I dare say he's going to
Yes.
want, you know.
They do a pretty good job maintaining the
Yeah.
one along Race Street.
Mhm.
That's a university path.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, they keep it cleared with,
There's a cone in that path, so
They-
you
they
don't
plow
like
it.
Go
flip
into
your
the
bike
pothole,
over. And then the trees are overgrown, and I have submitted this to ask if we could do something about it, but nothing.
That won't happen in front of the president's house. So I do have some questions. I got an email this afternoon saying the website was up, so I went and looked at it. And so I'm a little confused. I was looking at the page on existing issues and related recommendations. And under pedestrians, well, first of all, it goes from 1 to 4, so I don't know what happened to 2 and 3. You could ask them. They've got little, you know, pop-out boxes. And we've got 1, and then we've got 4. I don't know what happened to 2 and 3. They're not there. But number 1 mystified me. It's to improve safety for pedestrians. It says, add a parking lane on the north side of Florida Avenue. And nowhere do they explain why that's going to improve pedestrian safety. So I'm mystified about that one.
I can speculate, and again, I'm not working on the study. I can speculate that that was coming from the general traffic calming, theory of parking, on-street parking.
I can submit that question, but I think that's a point they could clarify
Yeah,
in
and
the
I
text.
I think it'd be a great question to submit, yeah.
Yeah, because I thought, I just do not understand, doesn't say anything about how that's going to help. It talks about the pedestrian level of traffic stress, but we don't get any data on it. So, I mean, I was trying to get, information out of it, and I was a little frustrated because I couldn't figure out what was that? And it says it's high. What does that mean? And it's the same thing for the bicycle level of stress. So they clearly ran it, but they didn't say, they didn't give us a link to the analysis or
Gotcha.
what they gave us was a link to tell us what it meant. And so, I'm trying to understand the recommendations here, and I couldn't figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah,
I,
let me
I wonder whether that analysis was done in the recent sidewalk network analysis. In
Yeah, a link to it would
2016.
be great.
Yeah,
Wherever it
that's-
is,
that's
that
a
would be
good
great.
question. Mhm.
And they point out basic things like the poor pavement conditions contribute to hazardous cycling conditions. Yeah, anybody who knows anything won't bicycle down that section of Florida. It's really bad. And so I'll go in and, submit my questions. And I asked you before the meeting, I still was mystified after spending a lot of time trying to dig through this about how they had made turning movement southbound off of Florida onto Race work for the buses. And so I think under transit, they've got transit passengers, But maybe some of the operational things, because that's a huge thing. I don't know if anybody else here, but I've backed up any number of times at that intersection so the buses could turn. So that's something the public would like to know, as part of the fix here.
Yeah, okay.
So I think just a little bit more depth in the data would help. And maybe I'm the only geek in town who wants to dig through all of that. But I was trying to get, some of the information out about what's going on in terms of why the recommendations came out the way they did. And I looked through the appendices, and that just had the turning movements, at the intersections, and that's probably more the traffic the turning movement volumes, and that's probably more data than most people want or understand. But that's there. So, and I think another thing that might be helpful is for explaining that the level of service is about traffic flow. And that the other model that Kuwat's ran included other factors, and I didn't really see that called out here in
Cynthia,
that
level of
analysis.
service is for motorized vehicular traffic, correct?
There is bicycle level of service for, but they're using the bicycle level of stress instead of bicycle level of service. Because people think it's better. But yes, the level of service is for vehicular traffic flow, the analysis that they've got in here. Yeah, you're right. And peak flows.
I watched the video where they do like a car's eye view from
I did that too.
Vine Street to Florida Avenue, and I think there might be an extra intersection in there. I think they
I was
did Orchard.
confused.
They did Orchard Street twice. They did one.
Well, there's Carl.
There's Carl.
Carl.
But it's
doesn't-
signalized.
Yeah. I
Oh,
think
it's not
there's-
signalized,
It-
no.
and
with
that-
crosswalks. I don't think they
No.
had crosswalks at Carl.
And
They
that
had-
could have been a miscommunication with the person who was doing the renderings, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
But the
there's-
first one, I think, didn't show a crosswalk on the west side at Orchard, and the overview looked like there were currently there isn't a crosswalk on the west side, it's only on the east side because
Okay.
there's no through sidewalk. But
Mhm.
since we would have a multi-use path along the south side, it would make sense to have
Mhm.
all four
Mhm.
crosswalks. I just want to make sure that that's the plan.
I'd caution you, these were very early renderings that
Okay.
it was thrown together within a week because
Yeah.
the public
Okay.
works director thought
I
it
could
looked
see how
cool,
that could happen.
you know? And we're grateful to the consultant to pull it together and do that. I feel like people who do renderings, it's really all they're asked to do is, can you do this like right away? but no, point taken. Okay, so that was. Do you think at Carl or Orchard there was maybe not enough crosswalks? Is that what you said?
Well, there's no crosswalks currently at Carl, and I don't think there were any in the overview
Okay.
of this one. It would have to be it would have to be a non-signalized crosswalk if there
Right.
was one.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I was confused too. I watched that several times in slow motion, and I was really confused about where I was.
But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there would be 4 crosswalks at Orchard, because it gets a lot of use from Orchard Downs,
Mm-hmm.
and it would make sense. There's currently a button going south on the road side for cyclists, since there's bike paths on Orchard to the south. So cyclists stopping on Orchard can hit a button, a beg button, but pedestrian on that side of the street can't unless they go out to the street and hit it.
Right. Yeah, no, it's really bad. Very substandard there.
And then, is there any hope of trying to do some automatic pedestrian detection at some point at any of these intersections?
I believe so. I believe that was one of the technologies we talked about.
It talked about automatic bike detection, and I assume that's in the traffic lane because or in the bike lanes, but not on the side path, I don't think.
Oh, yeah,
The grant application, correct?
it is. I didn't want to get in details, but I know that this was mentioned back in the traffic section. Used a lot of H's. Innovation. Yeah, so
Oh,
these were some of the
explain.
traffic signal technologies that we're looking at initially. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so like I said, yeah, I had the bicycle detection and
Smart street lighting, that's good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those are some things that we'll be considering for this corridor, and you know, the costs that we got on those were not really that bad. Didn't seem you know, prohibitive. So that was what was the one you'd stated?
The automatic pedestrian detection, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be infrared, correct?
I think it would work pretty similar to the way bike detectors work, so it would probably be some kind of either visual light camera or some kind of infrared.
I believe that's one thing they were talking about with the advanced video detection was
Pedestrian.
multiple modes, essentially. But yeah,
Okay,
definitely not my area of expertise.
yeah, that'd be cool. Mhm.
So if the count, it would be great if the count capabilities included more than vehicles. I'm assuming that that would be part of that, but.
I would assume so too. I mean, I come from the I'm sure computers can do everything, right? You know, but
Well, I know a little bit about that technology, and I think that they can do that. What the issue is how much you pay per year to get the data. Because putting in the cameras is one cost, but it's the annual cost of getting the data from them that is what follows after that. And that's where cities run out of budget if they don't budget for that. So that's a question you should ask when we reach the point of budgeting for that.
Yeah,
Because there's operational costs to get the
operational cost, for sure,
data and,
sure.
and analyze it.
great.
And this is where a roundabout would not cost any electrical and be better for the environment.
When would these be awarded or announced? Do you know?
Sure. August 12th, they'll announce the awards.
Oh.
And so hoping that we get it, we do have a schedule there showing completion July 2026 of construction.
Well, this would be less disruptive than the Encore project, so
That'd be our hope, for sure.
that was painful, but it was worth it.
And they had to very painfully ask the city of Urbana for more money, which was just heartbreaking. And it was a lot of money. But it's fantastic, aside from the beg buttons.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, I'll get out of your way, Audrey. And
Handout here, it's actually just some excerpts from IDOT manuals, and we'll have a quiz on it next.
I think I've already seen these.
So just,
There's one page that has so much that's relevant to everything we've been talking about, it's like, how did we get it?
maybe I can just do like a one sentence or two sentence introduction. This is basically about IDOT has a resurfacing project on East University Avenue from Vine Street to the interstate. That's all one project as far as I know, but there's talk about them dividing it into two projects potentially. But we were asked for input just a few days or a week or so before the deadline by email, so we didn't get a chance to meet and discuss it, but you all had a chance to comment if you wanted to by email on the city's response. So I think a lot of us sent responses.
Yeah,
Pretty few of us.
Yeah, MTD submitted a letter as well.
Okay, so Audrey's going to pick up from there.
Actually, several stakeholders were also asked for input, although I'm not sure all of them were, and I'll get into that in a moment. So, Mr. Drago, you can start the slides if you have it. There, he was going to try to run the slides so it would show up on the. You can see it, but the TV land can't see it at all. I think that's what they see. And the people behind us can't see it. So, you know what, I'll just give them a copy of it. Yeah, okay. So East University Avenue, I think anybody who knows this town goes, ugh, you're going to talk about biking on East University Avenue? Yes, biking happens on East University Avenue. It's a really amazing thing. Right here in the picture on the left, we have Traffic Skills 101 being taught by our own Cynthia Hoyle, and there was quite a bit of participation from Urbana staff in this as well. I believe Kevin Garcia was actually co-teaching it maybe, and Marcus Ricky, these are people in the planning department, was taking it, and then he went on and quickly became qualified as a full-blown licensed cycling instructor, and Charlie Smythe's there, and I'm there, and I'm not next to Cynthia. Okay, so that is right on East University Avenue at the MTD lot, and it looks amazingly residential when you think about it. Of course, this is in summer instead of in winter, what it looks like right now. And there is a sign behind her that's 45 miles per hour, as you see there. They put that, go from 40 to 45 right there. Now, they had put that speed limit in before the school district moved in, but it just looks a little bit contrasting that it's 45, and here's the turnoff to get into the school district with all their activities, as well as the MTD. Today I took a quick drive out there to see, and it was 1 p.m., and I did see one person out there not cycling. He was walking, and he actually was walking down my side of the street initially, and then he crossed over. He stood in the median and crossed over, and I caught up with him and asked him, "Why are you walking here?" And he said that he was walking from one friend's house to another friend's house, and he does not have a license. So, and this is at 1 p.m. on one day, just immediately. I saw joggers at crossing at Maple and University, just waiting to play Frogger across the University. So it is a street that has a lot of bicycling. I don't know if it has any counts, but it has a lot of what's called bicycle travel generators. So that's what we're going to go into next. And the form that you received, and you know, it wasn't, we didn't have time to get it on an agenda. IDOT did not give us time. It came in just a couple weeks before it was due, and it's a form that IDOT's required to fill out for even resurfacing projects, although their requirements are somewhat less for pavement resurfacing compared to a full-blown road project. But they still need to know who's using this road. Our advocacy at the state has really paid off. They have become incredibly cognizant of bike and ped needs. Chicago, too. I think that active trans has been a big part of that. So what they call as bicycle travel generators is anything in the project vicinity, which is defined as 2 kilometers, 1.2 miles, which the regional traffic engineer refers to as biking distance from the project, are critical to justify any facility that we would like to have them put in as part of this resurfacing project, whether sidewalk or bike. So that would include, and if you will look at the sheet I gave you, it's in the lower right corner of the first page. That was the bicycle travel assessment. And when John sent it out, I think he was looking for people to make him aware of what the bicycle generators are that we know of, and that IDOT maybe doesn't know of. So if you'll look at that, you'll see certain things were missed. There's no shopping. Who knew that Schnucks just doesn't matter to anyone on the north side needing to cross University Avenue to get some food? Walgreens, the drugstore, there's no employment centers or industrial centers. Flexengate. I guess Shahid Khan is just, making it on, I'm not sure, donations. There were a lot of things missing here. Within 1.2 miles, there's also a hospital that people might actually have to take a bike to get to. There's, and then I left off. So CCB went ahead and sent in some of these missing items when we became aware they were missing. We did still miss several things, though. The library is just 0.7 miles from Maple Street there. It seems a lot further because it's just not very bicycle friendly, and those of us who are on bikes, and it's not car friendly either. I mean, it's so horrible to get in your car and go those distances. Who even wants to do that? So we miss libraries, we miss churches and schools. Basically, we have a suburban area that's less than a mile from all that downtown Urbana has to offer.
Yeah.
And it's extremely difficult to get to and from there. And this is our opportunity to let IDOT know, wow, thanks IDOT for thinking about the peds and the bikes and the cars, who could see that those traffic lanes narrowed and a lot safer and pleasant trip down that avenue. So some of you may remember, I know we've discussed this before, but Fed Highways now has also decided to adopt this categorization of bicycles profiles, design user profiles. So they have not if you look at these numbers, they don't add up to 100 because the rest of the people are known as no way, no how. So we've got 51 to 56%, which is in the IDOT manual. If you'll turn the page, the IDOT manual talks about it right there. Just over 50% of the population may not be comfortable in bike lanes, usually preferring separated facilities. That 50% is what's called interested but concerned. For them, they want what's called the bike level of service, which is kind of similar to those stress levels we were talking about earlier. They want that to be C. You can think of as C for comfortable, for the interested and but concerned. Okay, that's the C level. IDOT would prefer that things be to that C level. I mean, I'm sure we'd all prefer everything to be to that C level. But on University Avenue, it would be very difficult in the current configuration to get to a C level. Also because of the heavy truck traffic. Trucks and buses are considered to be trucks, basically. They're considered to reduce your comfort level. And that all goes into a model, along with the width of the lanes, the number of the lanes, the speed limit. 40 being 45 there doesn't help at all on our bicycle level of service. And then you get to the level D would be in your somewhat confident cyclist and your highly confident cyclist. And, again, if you look at these images, you kind of get the impression there that it's only, that speedster on his Tour de France kind of bike who might be the highly confident cyclist. And they just don't seem to have the person who's on a, broken down mountain bike, biking confident, not because he wants to be, but because he has to be, and on the heaviest bike he can find to deal with the horrible pavements that are out there. That just doesn't seem to have quite registered with Fed Highways yet, but we know that exists, and that is what are using University Avenue right now. Less so than probably the recreational speedster, unless Bill is out there, I don't know. So they want part of what they say in their manual is it's more cost effective for them in an urban area if they can get all those interested but concerned people out bicycling. I'm not sure if we could really do some of the very visionary things with University Avenue that Jeff spoke of, that Champaign County Bikes would picture. Maybe we would get some of these interested but concerned cyclists out there. Right now I'm thinking that somewhat confident. Okay, so these quotes are directly from what IDOT sent. Current bicycle level of service is F. If the travel lanes were narrowed and 7-foot bike lanes were added, and using the future ADT, that was an error. They had to use the present ADT, but it didn't make any difference. The pavement bike level of service would only go down to a D, only. Okay, well, let's look at the list there. It goes A, B, C, D, E, F. So it would make a jump to D from F. There is an E, which you wouldn't know from that text. So it actually goes 2 levels. And if you will read the material that I gave you from the IDOT thing, you'll see that where you can't get a C, a D is acceptable, especially for certain contexts such as suburban rural roads. And they are thinking this is a very urban road, but it's not urban in the sense of densely populated. You know, there's very large distances between these manufacturing facilities and so on. So the question is, the question before you as you think about this is, should Urbana BPAC advocate for on-street bicycle lanes level C, D in addition to the hoped-for side path? And we'll get to just in a moment where we are with the side path. IDOT considers it appropriate to target bike level of service C in the urban core. I think I went over that. So most users would be in the highly confident group in that rural suburban context, and you could go with CD in that case. Are there any questions so far? Okay, so the Urbana Public Works had to send back this memo very quickly. There was actually, as I said, very little notice. BPAC didn't really put in a lot of input into it, and so they took the opportunity to advocate for a shared use side path, which is in our bike master plan. And this just points to the importance of care taken with master plans. When we were putting this together, it was a little bit harder to think about an IDOT road as being anything we could really advocate effectively for, especially IDOT, you know, with its reputation at that time. So it didn't make it didn't get a lot of serious attention at that time as perhaps it should have. We did know about the MTD at that time. The school district wasn't located there. So a shared use path to get to the Ambucks Park did make it into the plan, as well as a crossing. So this is our memo to IDOT requesting that, although they note that supposedly the cost of it needs to be accommodated within the original scope of the project, which could be a killer right now, given the cost of everything, whether that cost of that would not be prohibitive or not. But anyway, the conclusion is with the higher traffic volume and speed on the segment of University, we would not advocate for on-street bicycle lanes out of concern for the safety of cyclists. So, you know, we do have a higher traffic volume and a higher speed. Those things, though, this can be dealt with in creative ways. And this particular quote at the end is actually directly from what IDOT wrote to Urbana, saying that they don't advocate for that. Okay, so that was their suggestion. This is where it's that bicycle travel generator, the errors they made on that are just really critical. They are not understanding the setting that we're dealing with here. We need for Urbana to present to them what is going on really in this location, because IDOT simply can't know from Springfield. So we need to become familiar with it and let them become familiar with what's going on and why going up 2 levels would be a very worthwhile thing. The manual itself, and this is on the first page of what I gave you, states, because it's earlier in the chapter, right at the beginning, providing the highest and best bikeway facility that conditions and context dictate is better than no accommodation at all. It's amazing, you know. IDOT recognizes that leaving us hanging on a level F might not be more desirable than at least going up to the D 2 levels. If we had some on-street bike lanes, I think we've seen how much that improves traffic conditions for peds and drivers and all road users. And that whether we have sidewalks or not, when they aren't shoveled, pedestrians are forced into the streets. So having a little bit of buffer, such as bike lanes provide, between the pedestrians and the cars would be helpful. especially in the wintertime. But also, like that pedestrian I saw today walking down the street, he was right on the left side of the street. The bicycle level of service computation is really sensitive to large vehicles, which there are quite a few of there. IDOT sent the number, and it's 0.07858 is what they have, percent, so 7.58% is what they have for how many trucks we have. And they said that model that they're using isn't really suitable. If you look at the model, it just goes, whoo, it just blows up when the trucks exceed 4%. It's amazing. So it wasn't a great place, and they suggest a more detailed study. Now, a road diet, so I took the model and took a quick look at that, and a road diet of, say, 12-foot lanes, because we do have trucks, they need wider lanes, and say 8-foot buffered bike lane, it brings the level of service up 3 entire levels to a C, which gets that interested but concerned cyclist possibly even able to consider, but at least makes it a lot safer for our confident cyclists. Amazingly enough, on the same highway, the same US 150 in Champaign, IDOT has decided to do a road diet that will provide bike lanes, and the city of Champaign has concurred with this design. So it's between, and I'm not sure exactly where it's between, it's either the project goes all the way from I-74 to Springfield. So it's either between Bradley and Springfield or Bradley. I don't think it would be north of Bradley, but anyway, I'm not sure. That's all I know. And this is from a memo from RIDE, Illinois, our statewide bike advocacy group. The university ADT, that's our volume, is 11,200 vehicles, and Prospect Avenue has 16,600, although their truck percentage is smaller. But their overall number of trucks may be as high or higher because they do have a lot more traffic. Let's see, but we could still, as I said, a road diet could achieve a bike level service of C. Meanwhile, the Prospect on the very same state highway is going to get something that's going to reduce crash costs and the need for police involvement of all kinds, for enforcement, for crash costs, perhaps more business involvement as people are slowed down, perhaps less stress, I don't know. So the equity piece here, we need to take another look at our master plans through the lens of equity in a really strong way. I mean, the neighborhoods in this area are in a food desert. There are a lot of mobile home residential neighborhoods there. There's some 300 Urbana school children. A lot of that area, some of that area north is not even in Urbana. It's not part of the city, but the school children still go to the Urbana school district. I rode this route back when I won't tell you when I was a student employee, and at night terrified, looking down University and think, can I just stay on the left side and zoom to Maple before a car catches me? And I'm sure that that's still the experience of a lot of people out there. We have an experienced transportation planner who's riding this route regularly and knows it quite well, and we've got the population. So I think that if we could take another look and let IDOT know what we're faced with on University Avenue, we could see a lot of benefits to the residents of Urbana, as well as even people passing through. And then I have some additional materials if anyone needs it. I was really wanting to, oh, by the way, just in case you were wondering about how that compares. So University Avenue is 11,200, Prospect Avenue is 16,600, Florida Avenue is 10,000. Yeah, so we are talking about a very important transportation artery here. And as you know, IDOT did the safety improvements on West University, and there are multi-use paths going down, and that might be an argument for us getting one. There is a multi-use path going all the way down to Maple where it ends, with nowhere to go but onto the street, which a few of us know pretty well.
The other big cost saving is the slower a vehicle moves, the less it rips up a street. And also, bikes and pedestrians don't rip up streets. Heavy vehicular traffic like buses, which I love, and trucks rip up streets, but also speed rips up streets. So.
That's a really interesting point, yeah.
I know with the speed change on University now, it's 30. So it goes from 45 to 40, then all of a sudden 30 at Cunningham. Is there thought to reducing the speed before it gets to Cunningham so it doesn't make that 40 to 30 jump?
It goes to 35 on the west side of the intersection, 5
It
points.
should go to 30.
It goes to 30 closer to the hospital.
Oh, okay,
They
so
didn't
it
do it for
already
the
does-
entire stretch. They did it for what, 4 blocks by Carl?
So there is a step down already, okay.
There is a step down, but I'm the person who bikes regularly along here. And the transit district, the operators have a hard time pulling in and out of our maintenance facility because people are going so fast, particularly the people going westbound. They've come off the interstate, and the road is still built to highway standards, and so people are still doing 55 miles an hour, which is why I will no longer bike westbound on University, because when I tried to turn left on Maple, I had people nearly run into me, and I was nearly caused multi-vehicle crashes because people aren't paying attention. So I literally cross the street and get on Park and go up and then come down Sycamore. If there are no cars coming from the west, I will pull out and then make my left turn, but most of the time I end up on the sidewalk for the block there by the Boneyard, and then I get onto Maple and cross straight across. And that intersection has a lot of crashes. I don't know what the crash data is, but I know it's a pretty high crash intersection. And there are a lot of pedestrians crossing there. I have regularly seen mothers with strollers. I've seen wheelchairs crossing there because there are trailers, people live in trailers and apartment buildings to the north there, and they're going over to Schnucks. And so there's quite a bit of pedestrian traffic at that location.
And Cynthia, is this the Casey's intersection, or is this?
No, I'm talking about Maple. Maple is the intersection that street runs behind Schnucks.
Got it.
Pardon?
The park's western Shop Street.
Yeah, that's the other end.
Because, yeah, I would say the one by Casey's, I've seen multiple accidents over there, and that's when people are coming off the highway, and that's, again, roundabouts. They slow you down, so they decrease your perception of speed, so you can then realize you're in a different driving space. Yeah, you're in town.
Yeah.
And so just to say, like, that intersection's really very dangerous, and when I drive my car, I have the exact same experience that Cynthia spoke of. It's just, I will not go to that park. I mean, there's cool, fun things there. There's like musical instruments I would love to check out, but I will not go to it because you have to whip across multiple lanes of ridiculously fast-moving traffic. And then, like, I mean, I will go over to landscape recycling and pick up things and do things, but like, if I'm trying to get onto the highway, I will use that street. But that is the only time I will use that whole area.
Well, there are a lot of people who have to use that street.
I would say, well,
and
when I
they're
try to
crossing
bike,
it.
I would say when I try to bike to the transit district there, I go through the railroad tracks.
Right, yeah. But I can't go over the railroad tracks. And we have people regularly crossing to the bus stops on either side of the street, and there's a bus stop and in Bucks Park. And the Park District applied for a grant to put a multi-use path in there, and it was turned down because it didn't have anything to connect to. And that was a little ironic. So there are not sidewalks. MTD put a multi-use path in along most of their property, but the sidewalks are missing from most of this, as Audrey pointed out, and there are a lot of people walking and biking that live in the trailer parks to the west. So I think we don't know how many people are walking and biking there. That's the data that we're missing. And so if we could encourage IDOT to study that corridor, I did ask them once to do a count for us to put a crosswalk in for our bus stop. And they said we didn't have enough people crossing. So
Well, I
those-
saw
Do you know-
several joggers crossing at Maple. you
Yeah,
know,
so I think
several
that
hours.
maybe we could collect that data again.
I think one of the strongest arguments really is the employment centers, Guardian
Mhm.
West and Flux and Gate
Mhm.
and MTD School District. I know, do you happen to know how many people work in your building with the school district and MTD?
I do not. The school district just moved in this last fall, but they didn't know, IDOT didn't realize they were there. So we informed them of that. Champaign County Bike sent that in. And so they'll work with us, and I think if the city would advocate with them to take a closer look at that, that would be really helpful. The city of Champaign asked to meet with IDOT about Prospect because there was that announcement that came out of the blue a couple of years ago that they were going to study and widen Prospect. And so the city met with IDOT and asked them to study it for a road diet because they actually have a lot of pedestrians crossing along that section of Prospect. It's a high pedestrian area. This is not a high pedestrian area, but there are a lot of pedestrians and the speeds are extremely dangerous. And I think if the speed study were done, we would find out that the people are exceeding the speed limit there regularly. And because of the conflicting traffic with buses moving in and out and people, you know, all the various things that we pointed out, it makes it really unsafe. And I think the equity issue is one we really need to emphasize as you have done here.
Is there a motion we can make tonight to support Audrey's?
We can.
It wasn't on the printed agenda.
We can ask it
We
to be in
can-
next month.
Yeah, we can ask for it to be on the agenda next month, and I think in the meantime, staff has some direction or some discussion from us to go on, because you guys are gonna be meeting with IDOT before then, right?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, without a motion, I'll definitely be taking this to our meeting we have next Wednesday with
That'd be
IDOT
great.
District 5.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Audrey.
Yeah, I do have the additional materials that are available to anyone who wants them, including the public. The IDOT letter to Ride, Illinois, that details the upcoming aerial projects that are providing bike and ped accommodations, including a roundabout in Danville, Kirby Avenue Bridge in Champaign, and the Prospect Avenue Road Diet, among others. It's a couple pages of projects. And then the bike level of service calculator, if people want to try their own hand at designing what they think would work. But it does look like a road diet would definitely take it up to that C, which is really would be terrific to go to that, and more than I would even really hope for. But with a road diet, it would be conceivable. And then average daily traffic website that John sent me, and also includes trucks, the truck percentage. And you can look at the average daily traffic all around town. What you see might surprise you. And
We're
then,
getting really close to 9 o'clock.
okay, thank you. Correspondence with BPAC and others regarding this, and then any of the links, the design manual links, in case people want to get bonus points on their quiz next week.
Thanks, Audrey.
Great.
It's very
Thank you for
thorough.
the information.
Thank you, Audrey.
Okay, next we have announcements. I did want to mention that we have a new Bike Illinois State Board member, Cynthia Hoyle, with us. Are you vice president or anything, or just? a
I am
board
now
member?
the president of Ride
Oh, you're
Illinois.
president.
I've
Okay.
been the vice
You-
president,
Okay.
yes, and I'm now the president.
That's what it is.
Mhm. That's
Okay.
correct.
Any other
And
announcements?
We have a second Urbana resident, I believe, who's also on the board.
Oh,
That
yeah,
is right.
Deborah Lou.
That's correct.
Yes. Yes, we put out a call for people to submit their applications to fill 5 seats on our board, and we had 18 applications. It was, there was a lot of interest. And so that was great, and some
That's a
really
cool
talented
change.
people. And for announcements, I was going to say, by the way, if you would like to be involved in sort of getting information and giving input, Ride Illinois has something called Regional Action Teams that you can find on their website, and you can ask, Charlie is on there. I'm the board rep for our region, and this is how this all comes to us, is a result of that, and we have an opportunity to provide input. So all projects that come to our area, they look at and then they send forward to us. And there are many other things that those do, so you can ask to to be on that if you would like. That's another opportunity for you to be able to give input. And Wright, Illinois has a really good working relationship with IDOT. It's a very positive relationship, so it's a great opportunity.
Any other announcements? Okay.
I just wanted to mention that this Saturday, the Park District is having Earth Day for everyone at Meadowbrook Park, and so it's kind of a tangent to this, but there will be hikes, and then there's a bicycle tune-up station, there's kite flying, puppet shows, finding bugs and aquatic life, just like all aspects of Earth Day, but we know that active transportation and the environment are part of our mission.
Great, thanks. Jeff?
Sunday from 1 to 3, we're having a KRT celebration out at Oakwood, which is along the KRT path. So if you're free on Sunday, the weather looks like it's going to be decently warm. Come out. If you remember the one we had at St. Joe in 2017 when we celebrated the kickoff and the first leg, that was a great event. And we want to do the same thing for that first section of trail around the Oakwood to the trestle and then the trestle itself. And to give the Danville area crew some, kudos and some high fives because they were working hard to get it into Danville. So that's there, 1 to 3, and then we're going to have a celebration at 3:30 on the trestle itself. So.
Okay, thanks. Any other announcements? Okay. Future topics, do you want to put on the agenda for next month the East University Avenue again to see if there's any updates, and then if we want to make a motion, then we could. Anything else?
I was gonna, what I was noting was maybe include BPAC goals as like a continuing old business item. If Annie wanted to bring the, what was the name of that?
The Airtable?
The Airtable, yes.
Airtable.
If you wanted it to be something we do recurring. Another one was, Audrey 100% on recent crash data next meeting too, I believe.
Oh, yeah, okay. And Audrey's crash.
And the students will have their
Oh, yes, yes.
their review and study report on the bicycle master plan.
Okay. All right, I think that's it. With no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
2 minutes early.
All right.
Thank you very much.